Hello and welcome. I'm Lynda Kinkade in for Issa Suarez. Tonight, US President Joe Biden says he's outraged by the reported death of Alexei Navalny, and he's placing the blame squarely at the feet of Russian President Vladimir Putin. The Russian prison service says 47-year-old Navalny died while behind bars. Navalny was the leader of the biggest opposition movement in Russia, and for years, a thorn in the side of Putin. His mother says she visited her son in prison this week, and he was, quote, healthy and cheerful. In a forceful message given moments ago, President Biden was clear where the White House stood on Navalny's death.
Make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Navalny's death. Putin is responsible. What has happened to Navalny is yet more proof of Putin's brutality. No one should be fooled, not in Russia, not at home, not anywhere in the world. Putin does not only target his citizens of other countries, as we've seen in what's going on in Ukraine right now, he also inflicts terrible crimes on his own people. And as people across Russia and around the world are mourning Navalny today because he was so many things that Putin was not. He was brave, he was principled, he was dedicated to building a Russia where the rule of law existed and where it applied to everybody.
We've got these pictures just coming into us from Munich, Germany, where people there are holding a vigil for Alexei Navalny. We are seeing these vigils being held around the world. We will come back to those pictures and go to Munich in just a moment, where many world leaders are meeting for the Munich Security Conference. But right now, I want to go to CNN Chief International Correspondent Clarissa Ward, who joins us live from London. Good to have you with us, Clarissa. So Alexei Navalny, of course, was known as Putin's #1 critic. According to the prison where he was being held, he is now dead. But the details surrounding his death are very vague. What are you hearing?
Well, we only have what we have heard from Russian state media, from prison officials, that he had gone for a walk, that he collapsed, that ambulance arrived on the scene, medics tried to revive him for half an hour, and that some kind of an investigation will now be carried out by medical personnel to try to determine the cause of death. But of course, to his friends, his loved ones, his followers, to Western leaders, ultimately the responsibility for his death is seen as lying at the feet of the Russian state, because he died in Russian custody. There is, of course, a question mark as to whether he was assassinated today, or whether possibly he died because of illnesses or complications that he was suffering as a result of the incredibly cruel and tremendously challenging conditions that he is being held in. We have heard repeatedly from his lawyers over the course of the last few years, as he has been moved into different penal colonies, that he has suffered, that he has had medical issues that have not been properly attended to, that he has been over-medicated with many different antibiotics at different stages. And so, of course, there is a real question mark hanging over as to what exactly happened, but very little question in the eyes of many as to who was ultimately responsible, Lynda.
And Clarissa, we're just seeing some video now that we've got of Alexei Navalny taken the day before he died, this via video link. He seems happy. He seems to be joking with the judge. You've spoken to him in the past. We certainly have seen him look far worse than this when he's been on hunger strikes. How would you describe him in this vision?
He looks gaunt, certainly. He looks thin, but he appears energetic. He appears jovial. He's cracking jokes. He is sharing laughs with the judge and the guards even. We heard from his mother, Lyudmila, who told Novaya Gazeta, the Russian publication, that she doesn't want to hear anyone's condolences because she saw him in prison on February 14th, and he was in good health and he was happy. We saw him put out a message on Telegram to his wife, Yulia, wishing her a happy Valentine's Day, talking about how much he loved her. And that's why I think, even though people are not surprised by this, in the sense that the Russian state had tried to kill Alexei Navalny before with Novichok in August of 2020, there is still a level of shock. To go from seeing him just a day ago making jokes and smiling to suddenly and mysteriously being declared dead declared dead, rather, is deeply troubling and deeply disturbing, even if, of course, it confirms the worst fears that many will have had.
Yeah, exactly. Clarissa Ward, good to have you on this story for us today. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, Alexei Navalny's wife, Yulia, is calling on the international community to fight what she calls Vladimir Putin's horrific regime. This is a part of what she had to say at the Munich Security Conference earlier today.
I want them to know that they will be punished for what they have done with our country, with my family, and with my husband. They will be brought to justice, and this day will come soon.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met privately with Navalny's wife in Munich today to express his condolences on behalf of the United States. He says if reports of Navalny's death are true, it underscores the, quote, weakness and rot at the heart of the system that Putin has built. Blinken said the U.S. holds Russia responsible, a message echoed by Vice President Kamala Harris.
This is, of course, terrible news, which we are working to confirm. My prayers are with his family, including his wife, Yulia, who is with us today. And if confirmed, this would be a further sign of Putin's brutality. Whatever story they tell, let us be clear, Russia is responsible. And we will have more to say on this later.
Other Western officials at the Munich conference are also demanding accountability. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says Russia has serious questions to answer. He called Navalny a strong voice for freedom. Germany's Chancellor also spoke out today in Berlin, saying Navalny paid for his courage with his life. Olaf Scholz slammed Putin's regime, with Ukraine's president standing by his side.
Nun auch ganz genau.
We now, if we didn't already, know exactly what kind of regime this is. Anyone who voices criticism, who stands up for democracy, must fear for their safety and their lives. This is no longer a democracy and has not been for a long time now.
Well, CNN's Alex Marquardt is live for us from Munich, where he has been at that security conference. You've also been listening, obviously, to tributes and statements from officials and government leaders there. But we also heard from the US president a short time ago speaking about this. And just a few years ago, he warned about the devastating consequences for Russia should Navalny die in prison. What else did Joe Biden have to say, and what other repercussions could there be?
Yeah, the Biden administration has repeatedly called for the release of Alexei Navalny. President Biden speaking out about his reported death earlier today, saying in no uncertain terms that Putin and his thugs did it. That is the quote from the president. He said that he was not surprised, but that he is indeed outraged. And there have been, when we've heard these reactions, people are referring to the reports. There hasn't been independent confirmation, for example, by the United States, but President Biden saying clearly that he has no reason not to believe these reports and that this is more proof of Putin's brutality. An interesting question about what could come next. There is a whole raft of U.S. sanctions that have been posed against Russia. Critics of the Biden administration say that several have not been enacted upon. So there's the question of whether that could happen, whether more sanctions could be imposed, whether the U.S. and Europe could take more action when it comes to seizing Russian assets around the world. But Lynda, I think a big question for the United States tonight is really about the funding for Ukraine. Of course, this has been stuck in the U.S. Congress, approved by the Senate, but not yet passed by the House of Representatives, this question of $60 billion for Ukraine. So a question for Republicans who are blocking this tonight is, with this reminder of the brutality of the Putin regime, President Putin, single-handedly responsible, essentially, for the imprisonment and now the death of Alexei Navalny, will Republicans act and give Ukraine that much-needed $60 billion as a bulwark against Russia, certainly as we approach the second anniversary of Russia's invasion of Ukraine? Lynda?
Yeah, exactly. And as you speak, Alex, we're just seeing some more vision of the vigils being held around the world, remembering the courage of Alexei Navalny, both in Munich and in London there on our screens right now. Alex Marquardt for us in Munich. We appreciate your time. Thanks so much. Well, throughout the day, we have been hearing outrage from the international community. But how is Navalny's death being seen inside Russia? Well, to answer that, I want to turn to our CNN contributor and our former Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Good to see you, Jill. Look,
Lynda.
Russia obviously is responsible. That's what the UK and the US and many other leaders around the world are saying. What is being said inside Russia? Because I understand that the Russian parliament speaker took to his Telegram channel after the death was announced. What did he have to say?
Well, he's blaming it on the West. I have to think exactly how he would explain that. But, you know, I think what you have here is, let's look at the Kremlin. Okay, the biggest opponent of Vladimir Putin now is dead. So how does the Kremlin handle it? Well, people inside Russia actually, and I was very surprised to see this, have been coming onto the streets carrying flowers, not just in Moscow, but in other cities around Russia and outside of Russia, especially in Europe, where there are a lot of Russians who fled after the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. And they are laying flowers. We see some of the pictures here. And initially, when that happened, the police, in most of the photographs we saw on the video, looked like they were allowing that to happen. Now, in various cities, they are beginning to haul people away. Now they are taking the flowers away. So it's not clear how they're going to deal with this. But I think the whole meaning of that is that there are people who identify with not only with Navalny, but his message, who do support that, and who are willing to come onto the streets when it's very, very dangerous to do that in Russia without being arrested. So what will the Kremlin do? I think they are very nervous about this upcoming presidential election. We can talk more about that, but that is a re-election of Vladimir Putin coming in less than a month.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing for them right now, for the Kremlin.
I want to get back to that, the fact that the election's coming up in just a moment, but I just want to play some sound from some people in Russia today mourning the death of Alexei Navalny.
Of course, Navalny is a symbol. First of all, a symbol of opposition, a symbol of hope for some brighter future for Russia. And there's a feeling that with his death, this hope dies. If there had still been any hope left, it is even less now than it was before.
I don't know. It's kind of a shock right now. It's even hard for me to speak now. We loved him.
Young, old, men, women. It seems like Alexei Navalny's reach was extensive.
It was. And, you know, Lynda, I have been on the streets of Moscow many times during protests in 2017, 2019, 2021, et cetera. Most of them were organized by the supporters of Alexei Navalny. And almost invariably, when I talk to young people, they wouldn't necessarily say, yes, we want Alexei Navalny to become the president of Russia. It really, some did. But the essential idea is what that first woman said, which was another Russia, a better Russia, meaning a Russia without corruption. And for those supporters, they would say a Russia without Putin. So I think there are a lot of people in Russia right now who are shocked and who are wondering whether that hope is now extinguished or whether they have to live, lives of quiet desperation, waiting for a better Russia.
Yeah.
But it's a dangerous moment, I think, an unstable and unpredictable moment in Russia.
Yeah, but interesting, those people were speaking so freely about that. And also, you mentioned the timing of this. With an election in Russia happening next month, we already know that multiple candidates who wanted to run have been barred from running in the election. What does all this say, and the timing of Navalny's death, say about the mindset of Vladimir Putin?
Well, I think it's very clear that the Kremlin does not want any, let's call it, viable candidate. There will be other candidates. I think there will probably be about 4 on the ballot, including President Putin, but none of them make any difference other than Putin. So the one person who was against the war, who was quite obviously against Putin's running the war, was eliminated from the ballot. He's still trying to fight it. There's no way he'll get on. And so people now are being urged by Navalny's supporters and others to simply vote for whoever, but don't vote for Putin. So again, that election, the image of a democratic election is what the Kremlin wants to get across, not just to the international world. I think, quite honestly, Lynda, they've given up on the rest of the world, or at least the Western world. And they're more concerned about their own citizens, whether they can get them out to vote and whether they can get them to vote for Putin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he doesn't seem to care about what the rest of the world thinks right now, certainly the West. Good to have you with us as always, Jill Doherty, for us from DC. Thank you.